Hey, Coach Dave here. Thanks for letting me tag along on your journey toward greater health and vitality. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking with a friend and we were talking through his nutrition plan, and one of the things he said to me after his weekend is that he felt that he just couldn't control himself when it came to consuming carbs, and especially his favorite foods that he knew were not helpful for his weight loss. And so one of the things as we talked through it, one of the things I asked him, I paused and I said, so what if you are addicted to carbs? And there was a big long pause on the other end of the phone, and we began to talk through that. And through that conversation, it really was a great pivot for him for processing how to develop a strategy toward overcoming his addiction to carbs. Because as you may or may not know, the food industry has worked really hard to create foods that light up the reward centers of our brain. Very much like heroin, cocaine, they all light up certain parts of the brain. Well, the highly processed sugars and flours and wheat, they all light up the same part of the brain. So yes, we probably are addicted to our sugars and our flours. In fact, as you may or may not know, flour is higher on that glycemic index than even table sugar. So those are very addictive foods to eat. And so he and I began to come up with a strategy. And so I would suggest if you want to overcome your addiction to flour and or processed food, sugar, is that you come up with a strategy. And just a couple of things just to kind of get you thinking and then start acting on these kinds of things. The first is to really admit that you need and want to change. Just like we would be sitting across the table. In fact, I asked this gentleman as we were talking. I said, so if you were sitting across the table from a person who was addicted to heroin, would you just say it's a matter of willpower? Or would you say it takes much more than that? Yes, it takes great effort and willpower, but it takes so much more. And so that's what it's going to take for you. Is first it will take acknowledging and really stating that you want and need to change your patterns, your habits of what you eat. The second thing is, I would suggest that you get support of other like-minded people, one or two other key people in your life where you can talk through the things you're learning. Because I'm going to really invite you and kind of push as gently as I can, or not so gently, is to become a student of your food. Become a student of how your body works. Don't just take my word for it or other people you might watch on YouTube or other places, but learn for yourself. Learn from the experts. Learn from the doctors, the researchers, of what happens when I eat that candy bar, what happens to my brain, what happens to my insulin levels, what happens to the rest of my system. And have that person to talk through. What are you learning? What are your experiments as you try certain things, as you shift out different kinds of foods? How is your body responding to them? Have those conversations about what you're learning of what is happening within you. You can also talk through and brainstorm some solutions. If this is happening, I might try this. If this isn't happening, I might try that. Having that person who is like-minded, who's willing to take this journey with you, to process out loud, to brainstorm, to ramble on about our experiments that we're having, is going to be very helpful for you. The third thing is, I would invite you to develop a strategy of determining what's going on when your cravings hit. Now, most of us are, especially as we're recovering from our addiction to carbs, is what happens? And so here's a couple questions. So where am I when these cravings come upon me? Who is with me? Because one of the things about our cravings in our body is that we respond to stress, and food is a comfort food. And so maybe there's certain people in our life that just cause that kind of stress. Maybe there's certain situations. Maybe we're bored. Maybe we're stressed. Maybe we're something else. Maybe we're tired. That's actually one of the things that's also important too when it comes to your habits. But am I exhausted? Am I physically and mentally and emotionally tired, which is a great setup for falling into cravings? What am I doing is also a good question. And I think probably the most important one, I know it was in my journey, was this idea of what's going on inside of me. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's my perception of what's going on in and around me? All those things are going to help you begin to start figuring out what are the triggers for your cravings. Because then following that greater understanding is to develop some new habits. Maybe there's certain people that you just don't spend a lot of time with anymore. They're high stress people, right? They're high maintenance people that are going to really leave you wanting to eat those carbs from drive home from a meeting and say, I got to hit Mickey D's and I got to get me some McNuggets, whatever the case is, right? Maybe it's certain circumstances or situations that are high stress for you. Maybe as you start watching that your sleep pattern, you're not getting your 7.5, 8.5 hours of sleep a night. And that's a whole nother episode of this kind of Healthward together about our sleep. But maybe you're not getting enough sleep and your body isn't rested and strong enough now to attack and push back on those cravings. What's happening, what's going on in you as you're developing these habits of how now to address those cravings? I think it's important that part of your habits become very practical. Yes, there's certain places you want to avoid, certain places you want to go, but I think there's other things that when a craving hits, and cravings will come in waves. I think they always will. I think that's part of just our nature as human beings. Cravings will come in waves, which means they're going to come strong and they're going to back off. They're going to come strong and they're going to back off. So a couple things that I find helpful in my own journey. One is that when a craving comes, go drink a bunch of water. Big old tall glass of water, let it be refreshing, let it fill me up. In many regards, let it distract me. Fill up my belly with something that's going to be good for me. Another thing is take a walk. Get out of this spot. Whatever that spot is for you. Maybe you're at work and someone brought in donuts on Friday morning. You're thinking, oh my goodness, this is bad timing. You know what? You don't have to walk into the break room and look at those donuts and smell those donuts. You can go in a different place. Maybe for your break, you don't go into the break room. Maybe you go for a little walk around the building. Go out in the parking lot. Go outside. Get some vitamin D as you're absorbing the sun. Change your environment. Make it a very practical habit. Another thing that could be very helpful is that maybe you need to text your friend. Hey, I'm having one of these crazy cravings. Help me. Talk me off the ledge. That could also be helpful as well. I know a lot of these habits, now here's where I got a lot of these, is from our groups that deal with those overcoming drug addiction. Because there's a very similar process. We're trying to take the reward center of our brain that lights up over things we know aren't helpful or healthy for us, and we need to rewire our brain over time. And so therefore we need to come up with good strategies to be able to conquer this new lifestyle that we're after toward greater health and vitality. You know, it's going to take your very best to overcome this. It's going to take a team to overcome it. And here's the important part, is it's going to take time. It's going to take time to recover from these things. So have a plan, have some time, make sure you got your friend with you, and yeah, you want to give it your best. So, hey, thanks again for letting me tag along on your journey toward greater health and vitality. Trust this helps. Hey, let me know what's working for you down below in the comments. What's working? What habits are working for you? Who are your friends? What strategy are you using that's helping you overcome this addiction to your carbs and your sugars? And until next time, here's to your health.